There's no free passes, and that's why you need to partner with someone that you trust, as you mentioned multiple times, that's already in that space, that knows it, to mitigate your risk and your
Mhm.
exposure to the
Mhm.
pain and the downside.
Mhm.
The stronger, the deeper the relationships, the easier the transactions. All right, so how to underwrite for successful outcomes. Tell me about your underwriting process and what that looks like. How many deals you're looking at, even on the bull run that we were on, now sort of with the fluctuation in the market, how you're underwriting, how many deals you're looking at, Cynthia, before you say yes, how long your due diligence process is and kind of what that looks like.
So my due diligence process has been cut short way down because I've lived for over 3 decades in my local market. So I already know if a broker sends me an address if I'm interested or not. So it's that easy for me to screen deals quickly. So I don't spend a lot of time underwriting too many deals. The second thing is because I've spent so much time in this market and I have so many friends who own properties in my local market, as soon as I look at the whisper price that a broker is going to send my way, and I look at the vintage of the property, number of doors, etc., I know if it's priced reasonable enough for me to get interested or if it's already overpriced because several syndicators have been sort of flipping it every couple of years, right? And then there's not much meat left on the bone. So one thing I look for is, has the asset been held for a long time by the same owner? In which case the rents tend to be far below market. So I have that organic, somewhat free rent growth built into it without me having to spend a lot of extra capex to get that rent bump. So my screening process is super quick in that sense. The address, so I have now got a specific list of criteria that all my local brokers know. So I recommend really understanding your buy box. So I can only afford to buy a property at X price, like $5 million or $10 million or $2 million, whatever that might be, and finding the brokers or wholesalers who sell in that little pocket. That makes it really quick for you to be able to screen deals. And then your criteria, spell it out in as much detail as possible. It has to be, let's say, 80s or newer vintage, or 2000 or newer vintage, whatever that might be. It has to be in a low crime area. I want to have definitely high economic and population growth with that diversity of jobs. That's very important. So my Dallas Metro has all of that, but then there's pockets where I will invest and pockets where I will not invest. You also need to understand, like, you're investing in California, Jonathan. So if you're actually having rental properties in California, you would want to see if there's some kind of a government program, whether that's Section 8 or something else, that's going to pay your bills, because it is a lot more tenant-friendly market. So if a tenant refuses to pay, like I have sister and cousins, etc., with single-family rentals there, where the tenant has not paid them in over 6 months, and they can't do anything about it. So you must have a plan to collect that rent that you hope to collect, otherwise you'll be out of business. So make sure you understand those macro and micro economic factors of your submarket. So even in Dallas, we have some blue pockets, we have more red pockets. It depends on the type of loan you're getting. So if you're getting Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac kind of loans, then you're subject to federal laws, versus if you have a bridge or CMBS loan, right? Eviction laws and things like that. So there's a lot of homework that goes into the macro side. So do that analysis on one or two markets. Once you pick those markets, have your criteria, know your general back of the napkin kind of quick analysis to see if it's even worth pursuing, do a drive-by, and then stick to your criteria. Don't compromise, because you want to go all guns blazing with the best possible scenarios, right? Best case everything, have all the, tailwinds backing you when you get into a deal, because no matter how perfect the deal sounds, there's always going to be some struggle. So be careful.
100%. I love that so much. I'm getting a lot out of this, and I'm sure our listeners will as well. Your experience and sophistication is shining through. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's talk about the primary role of an asset manager. After all the hoopla, all the meetings, putting together spreadsheets, underwriting, deep relationships with brokers, etc., rent growth, population growth. We have identified an asset. We take this thing down. We raise $3 million, $5 million. It's ours. Then someone has to do the work. That's where sometimes the fun goes away, and you got to roll up your sleeves, and not just in the short, in the medium, and the long term. through the entire life cycle of that asset and that deal. Tell me, what is the primary role of an asset manager?
So a lot of times it's like asking your kids to clean the house. They look at it as a chore. And I see that attitude with a lot of syndicators where, oh, asset management is so boring. I'm just going to hire somebody to do it, etc. When in fact, it's what is operating a business is what makes you money. It's what makes it profitable. So involve your asset manager right from the beginning when you do the underwriting, before you submit an offer. Share those numbers and say, is this possible? Can I get these rents? Is somebody going to pay me $50 for parking when there's so much parking available in this apartment, right? So make sure those projections you put into your analyzer are realistic. So the role of an asset manager, the first one is minimizing risk and serving your customers. Who are your customers? Your customers are your investors and your residents. Take care of your residents, treat your employees well on site, and the property will flourish, and then it'll be profitable and you'll be serving your customers. But don't forget your bosses. You have 3 bosses. Your first boss is always the lender. They probably funded 70% of your deal. They own most of the deal. Do whatever they tell you. You get lender required repairs when you sign a loan. Make sure you do them, comply with them within that deadline, number 1. Their second boss is the city code compliance. You cannot operate a business, run your apartment complex in that city unless the city inspection gives you a certificate of occupancy. And they might have different requirements. Just because you operate a deal 10 miles away from this one, it could be a different city and a completely different set of rules from.
Those are called AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction.
Correct.
So
it's very different.
they have authority over that jurisdiction. It's their area, and it could be one block separates the two.
Correct.